right, folks, welcome to another live event at Pilot Institute on the airplane side of things. We do these every month on the first of the month. Today is November 6th. I know everybody has switch time except us, but it's a good thing. We're now 2 hours away. If you don't know, Arizona doesn't switch time or doesn't change time. And so half the year we're on Pacific time, half the year we're on Mountain time. So we're back on Mountain time like everybody else in our area of the country. And so I like it. I like it better than being on Pacific time. We're 2 hours away from the East Coast and 1 hour away from the West Coast. With that said, welcome. I see we have a few people watching us here. We have GA, Batshit Crazy is with us. What's up? We'll wait for more people to come in and start asking you questions. This is an event where we answer questions. So I go over, it's a live Q&A. I basically answer any questions you may have about aviation in general, how to become a pilot, maybe topics that you've seen in the ground school that you want additional information about, whatever it is, or maybe news events going on in aviation. There's been a lot of stuff going on in general aviation, in general, and in just aviation. We learned a couple of days ago that FedEx is telling their pilots to go find jobs somewhere else, which I think is interesting. We'll talk about that on Saturday with our weekly news update. But yeah, it looks like they don't have enough packages to go around, which is kind of interesting. We were talking about this in the office this morning. I think a lot of it has to do with the Amazon doing their own thing and starting to ship packages on their own, not using FedEx or UPS. And yeah, I find it interesting. FedEx has always been one of the top, being a FedEx pilot, one of the top of the list, highest paid and most coveted job in the industry. And I think things are changing, which is scary in a sense. We've seen a lot of movement lately about fuel. There is the FAA talked about the EPA talked about the effect of lead from 100 low lead fuel and how it negatively impacts communities, and then their plan to switch to no lead fuel, which I think is something to get behind. Obviously, I think it's safer for our communities. It's a good thing as long as we can do it within a price range that's acceptable and without having to add a ton of cost to airplane owners. I think that's a good thing. So we'll see that there's a lot of changes coming up with that in the future. I'm sure the next couple of years, actually, we'll see quite a bit of changes. As far as what we've done at Pilot Institute in the last couple of weeks, we've been busy creating new courses. Spent a lot of time last week recording a G1000 course, so we'll have that coming up very soon. We still have a little bit of recording on that to add more content, but we'll be showing you how to use the G1000 if you've never used it before, or if you're a current user, maybe you can learn a trick or two about how to use the autopilot, the flight plan function, some of the deeper menus in the G1000 in itself. We decided to use the NXI, which is the newer generation. Not a ton of difference with the traditional G1000, which is what we have in our airplane, in our Diamond. We have the original, I don't know what you call it, the regular G1000, and but the NXI has a few more features. But at the end of the day, the menus are very close. So if you know how to use one, you know how to use the other one, minus a few upgrades. So we have that in the works, which should come out in the next couple of weeks. And then we've been working on the maneuvers course, which I just spent the afternoon recording a portion of. Our team has been working on that for the past couple of weeks as well. And so we should have that available as well in the next couple of weeks, which is really exciting. The maneuvers course is cool because it's something that I've had in my head for the last 20 years, quite frankly. Since I was a flight instructor, I wanted to help my students practice their maneuvers at home. And I remember as a student pilot just sitting there and doing chair flying, and I'm sure you've done that as well. I wanted a better way to do this and a way to better explain all these maneuvers. Flying an airplane is all about a list of maneuvers. You're going to have to go up and do slow flight, steep turns, rectangular pattern, rectangular course, S turns, chandelles if you do commercial, blah, blah, blah. There's this whole list of things that you need to learn how to do. And at the end of the day, when you think about it, it's a list of simple steps that you have to remember. It's a procedure. So we build this procedure trainer that's going to help you rehearse those procedures at home. After you've learned them from your instructor, you're going to practice them at home and hopefully save a ton of money on your flight training. That's the bottom line. That's the goal of this course, is to help you save money on your flight training. So at the end of the day, your instructor is going to say, hey, tomorrow we're going to be working on slow flight and stalls, power on stall, power off stall. So you're going to go home, you're going to go on the computer, you're going to go to pilotinstitute.com, and you're going to be able to rewatch these maneuvers. And I see a question here asking, GA is asking commercial maneuvers. Yes, commercial maneuvers as well. And we're going to show you why you do that maneuver in the first place, explaining the maneuver. And that's what I recorded today. I recorded the why, the common errors that we see, and then the ACS, the standards in the Airman Certification Standards. And then after that, we have an interactive module where you can go and watch how the maneuver is performed, and you can switch different camera angles. And it's really cool. It's really neat. It's recorded in the airplane using different angles, and then it's recorded in the simulator using different angles. And so you'll be able to see the aircraft in the way that you've never really seen the aircraft before. On landing, for example, you'll be able to get a tail view of the aircraft and what it's doing when we're correcting for crosswind, along with an explanation of why it's being done that way and how it's being done. So it's like an in-depth explanation that's going to review what you learn with your flight instructor and allow you to do all this at home at no additional cost other than buying the course initially, and then be able to watch this over and over again. Before your flight, just go quickly to the website, watch that video, and you're like, oh, okay, now I remember how to do it. Boom, you go for your flight, and then you should save a ton of money. So I'm pretty excited about this. Like I said, it's been in the back of my mind. When I was a flight instructor, I had designed this app in Flash, if you guys remember Flash, where I would be able to sit down with my students, and instead of using a whiteboard or blackboard and just drawing the maneuver every time, I had this little app on my computer. I would bring my laptop, and this was early 2000, and I would just play on this app the different maneuvers and show the student, hey, here's what we're going to do today during our pre-flight briefing. Here's all the maneuvers that we're going to do. And then we would go in the airplane. So I'm trying to do the same thing here for you to use at home and make it really nice and easy. So yeah, I'm pumped. I'm really excited about this course. It's been a ton of work, ton of research to make sure we have the procedure. We're working on a big manual that's going to go with it. It's like 80 pages long, and it's going to detail every single maneuver with cool images and step-by-step. So you'll have a companion guide that comes with it that you can use on your iPad or whatever it is. So it's cool. I'm just really jazzed about this. GA is asking about how much will the G1000 course cost. I don't think we've set a cost just yet, but it's going to be around the $100 mark. Not really a whole lot more than that. And then, yeah, just trying to give you as much value as possible here. The G1000 course is cool too. We recorded it on our simulator. We have a full G1000 that we can play with, so you don't have to listen to audio from the airplane, which is not always easy to understand. We'll have stuff in the airplane as well because we can't do everything in the sim. But for the basic stuff where I can just explain and pause and set up the weather and show you what the weather radar is going to look like, all these things can be done in the sim, and it is just so much more user-friendly and easier to teach and easier to understand for you. So I'm really pumped about this. Connor said, when I was at AirVenture, I heard about the MedRex, and would it be a good idea to start with steam gauge, then after getting my PPL, move to G1000? Okay, great question. I don't know what MedRex, it might be a typo, but the idea of steam gauge followed by G1000, I would say yes, 100%. And here's why. There's been studies that have shown that going from the G1000 to a standard traditional cockpit is much more difficult than going from a standard cockpit to a G1000 aircraft. It's great to have both of these in your back pocket available. At one point, you might want to rent an aircraft, and all they have is non-G1000 aircraft. And there's a lot of places in the country. You might want to buy an airplane that doesn't have G1000. You might be flying even with the airlines where they don't have G1000. They still have aircraft that have traditional gauge. So there's a lot to be said about doing initial training in the round dial, moving to the G1000 later on, where the G1000 is amazing. There's no question. There's a ton of safety features in it. There's a ton of technology that you need to get exposed to. But I think doing it initially in a traditional and then moving to G1000, I think that's a great idea. So I would absolutely do that. Oh, MedExpress. I see what you're saying. Okay. But yeah, I would definitely recommend doing that. When I've worked in Florida, that's what we did. We had our basic trainers were older aircraft that had traditional round dial, and then as soon as students hit instrument, we would move them into the G1000, and that way they were exposed to both different platform, and I think it worked really well. So yeah, I would say if you have the ability to do that, absolutely. Batshit Crazy is asking, hood time is useful. Yeah, hood time. I mean, especially if you're doing instrument stuff, it's required. I mean, you have to fly under the hood and do your training, not being able to see outside. I know it's easy to cheat, and it's tempting to cheat by looking outside. Don't do it. There's a reason we do the training under the hood. If the conditions outside are VFR, is because it's stuff that's going to save your life. If you've never flown by simply looking at the instrument or solely looking at the instrument, it's going to be a dangerous situation. So you need to make sure that you have that training of flying under the hood. Absolutely. So, yep, I would say definitely. If you have more questions, put them in here. I'll answer them as I see them pop. I wanted to talk about another course that we've been working on in the meantime until we have more questions. But we've been working, and we are still working on a radio communication course. This is something that I think a lot of people have been asking for, something that I've seen being needed for a long time, which is a procedure trainer. I've talked about the concept of procedure training for radio communication. And I want it to be more than just a video. I want it to be interactive, so you have a chance to actually talk to the computer, and the computer can listen to what you're saying and correct you if needed. Think about it kind of like learning a new language, where you can talk into the computer and it analyzes how you say certain words in a foreign language and make sure you say them correctly. Talking on the radio is a foreign language. It's a different phraseology. It's a different composition. And so we need to make sure we train you on how to do that. So we have been developing technology to do this. You'll be able to talk in the software. The software will analyze what you said and grade what you said. If you're missing words, then it's going to tell you you're missing a word. And then at the end of the day, it's a procedure trainer. It's going to help you learn the different phraseology for different situations. So we'll have different scenarios: taxiing at an uncontrolled airport, taxiing at a controlled airport, taxiing at a very busy airport like Phoenix or any other Class Bravo airspace airport. And then it's going to give you that feedback, and it's going to be almost like real life. You'll be in a simulator, you'll be taxiing, and then it's going to stop and say, what do you say now? And you have a way to get a hint, so you'll be able to learn. You'll be able to do it on your own and make sure that you could go and do that flight on your own. And then there's going to be a controller that's going to talk back to you and give you commands, and then you'll have to repeat that correctly. And if you don't, then it's not really going to let you move forward. It's pretty cool. It's still in development. It's going to take a couple more months for us to finish this, especially since we're working at developing the other courses. But I'm really, really pumped about all of that. So it's exciting. GA is asking, have you thought of doing early analysis video about aviation accidents? Yes. it's difficult. So I'll tell you my stance on this. How am I going to say that? So when an accident happens, typically we have access to very little information, and so I don't like to speculate. I've had that over the years with being in aviation. I always have people coming to me and say, "What do you think happened?" And I'm always reluctant to tell them what I think happened because I don't have all the information, and so it's very difficult. And I can speculate. I can tell you what I think happened, but at the end of the day, it's not something that I'm very comfortable doing because without having access to more information, it can lead to a dangerous path. And I don't know how to explain it any better, but I want to make sure that I'm respectful, especially if it's a fatal accident, and putting the blame maybe on someone or saying, this was pilot error when we don't have all the information, and then the information comes back and it turns out it wasn't pilot error, it was something else. So it's always very difficult to try to assign a cause to an accident, especially when the majority of accidents these days, unfortunately, are pilot error. But if in the event that it's not, then it makes it difficult. So I hope this makes sense, this explanation. But it's something that I thought about doing. I'd rather do content eventually on accidents that have happened where we know we have a cause, when we know we had a final report from the NTSB, and then trying to reconstruct those accidents. I think there's much more value there. But being too early at analyzing, and I know there's YouTube channels that do that, I find it difficult personally to do that. So I hope that answers your question. Connor says, for keeping current, I heard it's 3 takeoffs and landings a month in the same. Is the same for night and instrument, also for logging flight time. It only when I'm hand flying. Whoa, there's a lot going on here. So 3 takeoffs and landings within 90 days is your currency, and that's to carry passengers. So that's it's not a month, okay? At night, it's going to depend. If you're carrying passengers at night, then you need to do 3 takeoffs and landings at night within the last 90 days without passengers, so you can eventually carry passengers at night. Instrument has its own requirements. Within 6 months, you have to do approaches and holds and all of that jazz. So that's different. And then as far as logging flight time, I'm not sure what you mean by hand flying, but flight time is flight time. If you're in the airplane and you're the pilot in command, or you're flying with a flight instructor, then you can log that flight time in your logbook. If you're flying with the autopilot, which I don't really consider hand flying, you still can log the flight time. So that hand flying is not really a term that's being used. It's either you're pilot in command or you're receiving flight instruction from someone, but those are the terms that the FAA uses. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. If not, leave a comment in here and let me know what you think. Okay. Any other questions? Leave them in the comments. I'm reading them as they pop out. I do want to talk. I love talking about the things that we're working on because I think they're really exciting. So I'm going to keep doing that until you guys have more questions. But we've been designing these deep dive courses, and if you haven't seen them, there's 3 of them out. They're free. You can go on the website and enroll in them. And it's a in-depth course to talk about a specific aircraft. So we built one for the 172. It's really cool. It talks about all the different systems, the aircraft in itself, and we do a full walk around the aircraft, show you what each piece of the aircraft looks like, what it does. We take the cowling off, we show you the engine, show you all the different parts of the engine, the accessories. It's really neat. And so we've done that for the Cessna 172, the Diamond DA-40, which we own, and then the Piper Warrior / Cherokee. We have all 3 of these courses available online. And what we've done with these is inside of each of these, we have a procedure trainer. And I know this is a common theme, and I've mentioned this term many times because I believe in that concept, where you can practice your checklist. And we've built a cockpit, and you're able to click in different areas of the cockpit to practice your checklist. And so you can pull an emergency checklist, for example, in 172, and then go step by step. And you have to click the different items in order in the cockpit to make sure that they are working correctly, that make sure that you understand the procedure. And what it does is it helps you memorize your checklist, or at least memorize the flow of checklist in that specific aircraft. And there's a ton of value there, because the more you do this, the more comfortable you are in the cockpit, the more chances you have of saving time when you do your next flight. If next time you get in the airplane, or the first time you get in the airplane, you're like, oh, I've seen this checklist before. I've practiced on my computer. I know where all the things are in the cockpit. Then you're going to be that much quicker at finding items. You're not going to be like, oh, where's the fuel pump? Or where's the landing light? Where's, you know what I'm saying? So we are taking this to the next level. I wanted it to be more than just a picture that you can click on, which I think is cool. It's an amazing concept. Nobody else is doing that, quite frankly. But I wanted to take it to the next level by having augmented reality. So we are working at developing these in augmented reality, and that's coming very soon. We've been doing a ton of work in virtual reality. We actually have an app coming soon on the Meta store. So if you have access to Meta goggles, VR goggles from Meta, you'll be able to download this app where you'll be able to pre-flight a 172 and more aircraft very soon. In VR, and anywhere you are, you can put the goggles on and walk around and actually see items in transparency that you would never be able to see. You'll be able to see inside the wings. You'll be able to see inside the engine. You'll be able to start the engine and see the pistons moving. You'll even be able to put your head inside of the engine if you wanted to, and see the pistons moving, and the crankshaft moving, and the propeller spinning. You'll be able to see the fuel system, the brake system, the pulleys that are connected to the flight controls. A ton of details that you would need to open inspection panels or remove the skin of the aircraft in order to see it. And now you can see all of it in VR in real size. So if you have a big room, or you can use the flight controls to just walk around the aircraft virtually and see all these things. So it's amazing. Everybody that we've put in these goggles to use this are like, I've never seen anything like it. And that's coming. That's coming soon. We're submitting the paperwork to Meta right now to get it approved. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm hoping that we can have that available and can release it. So I'm pumped. Like I said, this is the kind of stuff that makes me happy, because it's been in my head for a long time, and now it's coming to reality. So I see a few more questions, so I'm going to stop talking about this. What do you think about starting a career as a commercial airline pilot at age 46, starting at zero? Well, that's a question we get quite a bit. So let me answer that. It's never too late to become a pilot, okay? Now, as far as airline pilot, you got to think about several things. How long it's going to take to do the initial training, which can vary between a year, starting from zero, getting to become a commercial pilot, a year to 2 years, depending on how much time you have available to do it, to maybe even more time than that. And then on top of that, you'll have to build your flight time to either between 1,000 to 1,500 hours total, which will take several more years. So let's say you went to a 4-year degree. So that would be 4 years to get your license and your degree at a school like FIT or Embry-Riddle, or UND, and all the big schools out there. And then after 4 years, you'll have to build your flight time to 1,000 hours, which will take, let's say, 2 years. So now you've got 6 years. So if you're 46, you'll be out at 52. Then you have to go fly for regional for a while, because that's the job you're going to be offered. And then move to the majors, depending on how quickly it gets there. Like I said, you're 52 when you start at the regional. Let's say it takes you 2 years or 3 years to upgrade to then you're 55. And then from here, you have 10 more years of being an airline pilot. The question is whether the airlines are interested in investing a ton of money in getting you your type ratings in order to utilize you, I should say, for 10 years as an airline pilot. And so I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if the airlines at this stage are interested in a 55-year-old. And I know it sounds ageist, but that's the reality of things. The airlines are going to look at it and say, well, this guy is going to be here for 10 years. And then you expire after that. Literally, that you cannot be an airline pilot anymore. So there's a risk. There is a risk, depending on how long it takes you to do all of this, to get to a point where the airlines are like, well, just, we don't have room for you because we have kids that are in their 20s that, now are going to be airline pilots for a long time, and we're going to invest all that training in them. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying it's impossible. And I'm also going to say that there is other things that you can do as a pilot that is not an airline pilot, that doesn't have an expiration. I hate to use that word, but an expiration at 65, where you're just mandated to stop working as an airline pilot. So there is instructing, there is flying for Part 91 operation. Flying for Part 91 operation would be things that are not airline related. I don't know how to keep it very simple in terms of language, but there is flying for private jets, okay, NetJet and this kind of work. So there are other options of things that you can do that is not becoming an airline pilot. So it's not too late at 46. You have to be realistic as to where you will be able to go and how long you're going to be able to be there in order to fly. And obviously there's a cost associated with that. So you also have to do in your head a return on investment calculation. How much money are you going to spend on the flight training? And then how much more money is it going to bring you compared to what it's bringing to you right now? Unless money is no object, which could be the case. Some people just have made enough money now and they're looking for a career change just because they want to have fun doing something different. So if that's the case, then that's not part of the equation. But if you're looking to make more income, just realize that large amount of money that comes with becoming an airline pilot doesn't come in until several years into the training. So flying for a regional airline is not the most lucrative thing. Flying for an airline is going to be more lucrative, but how many years is it going to take you to get there versus how much money are you going to invest into this? So I hope this makes sense. I'd never want to tell someone not to do something, but I want you to be aware of the limitations and the possible roadblocks that you're going to be experiencing out there. The upside is you're going to be a pilot and you can be flying anywhere you want at any time with those aircraft. So that's the cool thing. So yes, it is absolutely a possibility. Okay. Leo's Danny Lima is saying, what's your opinion on the Western Kentucky plane crash that killed the instructor and the student? Taking your ground school course and a lot of things you mentioned on attitude were on point. I think that's the kid that was on TikTok that flew into a thunderstorm. I think that's what you're referring to. Extremely sad situation that made me pretty angry, quite frankly. We talked about it in the office. So in case you're not familiar, and I hope that's the one you're talking about, but if it's not, it's still a good learning point. It's this young, and I don't think young matters in this case, but young instructor who went on a flight with his student, and they flew straight into a thunderstorm and never came out of it. Right before taking off, that instructor made a video diminishing the student's ability, calling him all sorts of names. And that was the last video that was posted because that was the video of them going on that flight. And obviously extremely unprofessional behavior, whether or not they made it out alive, and obviously really bad decision making of flying into a thunderstorm. Invincibility, I talk about this in the course, one of those things that you should be avoiding, the macho attitude, and obviously just like I said, the overall lack of professionalism from that instructor. Looking at videos that he had posted online about other things just seemed like a bit immature in the behavior. And it just made me very angry that he basically took a student's life after making fun of him right before taking off. So just a sad situation overall. I don't know how this person got their flight instructor certificate in the first time. I'd love to see a bit of an investigation as to who gave him his ticket, and then maybe I don't know. I don't know if there were early signs of this kind of behavior, and if this needs to be a wake up call as to what we check when we give flight instructor certificate. It's a lot of responsibility, and unfortunately, it's also a wake up call for students when you choose your flight instructor. And I have information about this in the course, in the private pilot course, and then in our we have a guide called The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Pilot. I have a bunch of questions that you should be asking of flight schools and flight instructors. And one thing that I mentioned is this is a gut feeling. When you find a flight instructor, there's a gut feeling there. You have that discussion with them. And if it's not a good fit, don't stay with that flight instructor. There's nothing wrong with changing flight instructors because you're not feeling good. You're not getting that gut feeling. And I don't know how that student felt about the instructor, but I cannot imagine that it was a good feeling because of the way that he seemed to be treating that student. So, yeah, just a really sad situation. I hope we don't see that again. This was the first time that I had seen anything like it, and I hope we never see that again. I am the poppy seed. I think we've seen that person before. Says, hey, Greg, wondering your thoughts on what a flight instructor should look for in a flight school. Ooh, interesting. What a flight instructor should look for. So you're interviewing or potentially interviewing a flight school as a potential employer. I would look at several things. I would talk to other instructors. Now, instructors, after a while, get pretty burnt out at most flight schools, so take everything they say with a grain of salt, but the overall feel will tell you how you should feel about the flight school. There's no perfect flight school. It's a tough business. Being a flight instructor is a tough job, so there's never going to be anyone that says, oh yeah, this is the greatest place on earth to work. I don't think. And if they do, then perfect, go work there. But I would say talk to them and see how they feel about management. Is management actually listening to the flight instructors? Are they forcing them to do things they're not supposed to be doing? I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly at flight schools, and I know there are flight schools where the owners are pushy, and just the way it is. It's just like every business. Flight instructing is difficult. It's tiring. The hours are long. You're going to be flight instructing early in the morning, possibly until late at night. And so you need to make sure you have a school that doesn't force you to do this day in and day out without proper rest. The other thing that I would look at is maintenance. Go and look at the aircraft. These are the things that are going to keep you safe when you're flying. If you get in the aircraft, you'll get a good feel. If you're a flight instructor, you've flown long enough now that you can get that gut feeling of this flight school doesn't take maintenance too seriously. So if you feel like the maintenance is good, then that's probably a good place to work. If they're cutting corners, we saw a report not too long ago from a student that sent pictures and said, this thing is missing here. Is that normal? I was like, no, it is not normal. You cannot fly this aircraft and it should be grounded. And if the flight school say, no, we're going to be flying this aircraft, then run. As a student, as a customer, as a flight instructor, run. If somebody forces you to fly something unsafe, definitely not the right place to work. So yeah, those are the red flags, usually the things that will get you in trouble. I would say management forcing you to do things against the regulation, maintenance that is cutting corners, not a good place to work. So that's top of my head. That's what I can think of right now. Jake says, my check ride is in 2 weeks. Woo! I'm super nervous. Any study tips? I found myself getting lost in what I should be studying and memorizing. Yeah, it's totally understandable. That overwhelming feeling is totally understandable. I would say two things. I would say trust your training. Okay, you've gone that far for a reason. If you're getting signed off for your check ride, it's because your instructor feels like you're ready. So even if you don't feel like you're ready, if your instructor feels like you're ready, they're not going to sign you off otherwise. So uh, have trust in that process. And I would say focus on the things that you're just not as good at. And it sounds obvious, but go back in the chapters that you're weak. And maybe it's weather, maybe it's the charts, but the things you're good at, don't worry about those. You're good at those, right? Just get those out of the way, and just focus on the things. And don't overdo it. At one point, if you're getting to the point where it's becoming like a big mush and you just overwhelm, maybe take a day off and then come back to it. But ask your instructor to do a mock check ride. I'm sure they're going to do that. Maybe ask to do a mock check ride with somebody else. Your instructor should be checking everything, but then go with somebody else. Go find or ask your instructor to find a check pilot at the school or somebody who's more experienced, and then ask them to grill you or give you a mock check ride. And that's going to make you feel a lot better. Trying to figure out exactly what to expect. We have a check ride course that can help you as well. It's pretty affordable, and it's going to walk you through everything to expect during the check ride. And then we have a scenario that you can walk through that's going to look very much like what you'll have on your check ride day. So that can take the jitters out maybe, so you have an idea of what to expect during that check ride. But yeah, trust the training, man. You've gone that far. If your instructor is willing to sign you off, it means you're pretty good. And there's never going to be a time where you feel 100% ready. Can guarantee you that. I remember my instructor before my first solo. He said, "I'm not going to tell you when your first solo is. You're going to show up at the airport, and then we're going to go for your first solo, because," he said, "I don't want you to get worked up about it. And if I say you're good to go, you're good to go." So yeah, trust the instructor for that. Can you do a brief on the VORA approach at KOLM? And is there a hold there mandatory? Ooh, I don't know that I have a way to share my screen, unfortunately, Jack. Yeah, I should have been ready for that. I apologize. No, it's gonna take a lot of time to do that. Jack, shoot me an email, greg@pilotinstitute.com, and then I'll be able to help you on the side and study the approach and take a look at it. Okay. Okay. What else? I think we've answered all the questions so far. Tons of good questions and insightful topics. Yeah, you're welcome, Jack. It's easier sometimes for me to just take a minute, take a look at it, and then not just be quiet on the thing as I study the approach. Are the commercial flashcards coming to iPhone? Yes. So flashcards. Flashcards have been, well, Flashcards app have been a bit of a pain in our rear end, because developing apps for mobile is difficult, especially when it comes to Android. I hate to say it, but every person that develops stuff for Android hates it because there's so many versions of it. And so as soon as you come up with one, then it becomes not compatible with another one. And it's a pain. It's a pain. So what we are doing is we are developing our own platform to do testing, quizzing, and apps, and flashcards. And as you can imagine, it's a big project because we want to do it the right way. So eventually we will have flashcard apps on the iPhone, specifically in an app. But in the meantime, these flashcards are available in mobile, in browser format at the end of the course and at the end of each chapter. So unfortunately, I hate to say it, but use the browser version for now. I know it's not super optimal, but the cards are there until we have the ability to develop this whole thing and make it the right way. I hate piecemealing and using different apps for different things. So now we're putting everything under one umbrella, and it's going to be amazing. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to say patience, but thank you for asking that question. Hotel X-Ray Lima is saying, I just soloed yesterday. Congratulations. That's awesome. It took around a year to get my medical with a soda. Could you bring awesomeness to it for students who are looking to obtain one and the medical flight test? Yeah. Awareness. I'm sorry. Yeah. Soda. SODA, Statement of Demonstrated Ability. That's what it stands for. If you have a condition that would otherwise be disqualifying for a medical certificate, you can actually get a special issuance of that medical certificate by going through the process. And like you said, it's a lengthy process. Unfortunately, there's not like an easy guide to doing this because it all depends on your condition, and so you'll have to get with the FAA to do to demonstrate that whatever you have that disqualifies normally doesn't actually disqualify you from flying safely. And there's a litany of tests that you have to do and go through, and it's a painful process, as I'm sure you can say. It takes a long time, and it's back and forth with the FAA, and it's never guaranteed. So SODAs are available. Because you have a disqualifying condition doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way, and you may be able to demonstrate it. One example that I like to use all the time is a lady that flies, and I don't remember her name, but she flies with no hands. She uses her feet to fly, and obviously not having hands would be a disqualifying condition for getting a medical certificate, but she was able to demonstrate to the FAA that she can do everything safely by using her feet and using other things. And so then she'd get a SODA, in this case, special issuance. So I don't know what your condition was. I don't need to know because I know it's a medical condition, but yeah, it's possible. It's not all is lost if you can't get a medical the first time around. Another tip for Jake, every DPE has its own unique style and subjects, that they like to focus on more than other things. If you can ask other pilots that went through with that person, what were the questions? Yeah, that's a great tip for Jack that was asking about the check ride. Yeah, find somebody else. My business partner, Johan, went for his private pilot check ride a couple months ago, and he got assigned this DPE that nobody knew. and well, not a whole lot of people knew. So he went online and researched on Reddit, and I think he found this flight school that was using that used that DPE for like 10 people, and like 7 of them failed. And so he was all stressed out, and he passed with flying colors because he was trained, he was ready, he had the knowledge. Obviously he trained with us. So but I told him, I said, you should go back and tell them that flight school sucks, because if they had 7 people fail out of 10, there was obviously something wrong somewhere. But no, he said the check pilot was actually very fair, and the check ride didn't last that long. So but yeah, it's a great thing. Great tip. Go ask other people what questions, what topics they like to ask, and people usually know at flight schools the DPEs and how they are. And Puppy Seed says, I'm commercial single engine check ride in 2 weeks. Awesome. Any tip to success? Commercial is a great certificate because it's just a private pilot on steroids, kind of. So it's a lot about hand flying and showing that you can get to the next level. Obviously, the oral is going to have a lot of questions about regulation, what you can do as a commercial pilot that you couldn't as a private, and then all the things that as a commercial pilot you cannot do. And then the flying portion is all about doing these commercial maneuvers. So as long as you are a good pilot, skill wise, you'll be doing great. It's I never thought the commercial was a difficult check ride, just because by the time you get there, you have enough experience, you're comfortable with the aircraft, you've done a private check ride, more than likely an instrument check ride, you know how check rides go, and then it's just about knowledge. So yeah, I think you'll do great. If like I said, if your check pilot is, if your instructor is signing you off, means you're ready to go. Could you go over inoperative equipment? I know 8 tomato flames, but I'm not sure what else I need to know. Jake, inoperative equipment, 8 tomato flame is only a small portion of the whole equation. You need to find when something is inoperative, you need to talk about the kind of operating, the KOEL, kind of operating equipment list. So you need to go in there. 91213 is definitely one of them. Jake, I'm sure you're in the course. Go back to that section in the course where I talk about this, because there's 4 different things that you need to look at when you have inoperative equipment. 8 tomato flames is only one of them, but the manufacturer is going to have requirements, and then there's like the minimum equipment list you need to be familiar with, even though in this case you're probably not using one. But it all comes down to, are you operating with a minimum equipment list or not? If not, then you have these 4 steps that you need to look at. So I would say the course has all the stuff detailed. It should really help you in there. And yeah, 91213 is part of it, as Tom said in the comments. All right. Well, folks, we are 46 minutes into it. If you have more questions, leave them in there. Otherwise, we're going to be ending it pretty soon here. Like I said, I'm pretty pumped about all the stuff that we've been working on. I'm excited to be releasing some of these courses we've been working on for several months now. The VR stuff is cool. The AR stuff that's in the pipeline is also really cool. I should be getting a first draft from our team pretty soon here. We've got a ton more content coming on this channel too in the next couple months. What else? We've got tons of stuff. I'm super excited. It's going to be winter soon, which means less flying, unfortunately, for us. But I haven't been in Diamond in a couple weeks now, and I'm kind of itching. We were over there recording some stuff on the ground a couple days ago, and I was like, man, I want to go fly. So hopefully I can do that very soon. Jack says, when landing at a towered airport, do I have to wait for air traffic control to tell me when to get off, or do I exit as soon as possible? No, you exit as soon as possible. And then unless they tell you, well, usually they'll tell you, hey, if you can make it, make a left on this. But if they don't say anything, just get off at the exit that you need. And then switch to ground control. But yeah, unless they tell you specifically, but most of the time they'll either ask you to go a specific way, or if they don't say anything, just go wherever you need. And then, but don't taxi after that, right? You need to make sure you've got, once you clear the runway, make sure you switch to ground to get your clearance. What else? That's been awesome. That was a good session. Tons of good questions. Just make sure you're not exiting into a crossing runway. Yes, make sure yes, that's a good point. Thank you, GA, for saying that. Make sure you're not exiting into a crossing runway. If you have crossing runways, and make sure that if you have lasso operation, landing and hold short, also make sure you hold short, but that would be in your clearance when you land. They would tell you to hold short. All right. Well, I think we might be getting to the end of the questions. If you have any more, you can leave them once we end this. If you're watching it after we went live, you can put the questions in the comments. We read the comments, we answer the questions. So what new courses for airplane are you planning on releasing? So we have maneuvers, airplane maneuvers coming up. We have G1000 coming up. We have a radio communication course coming up. And then we have a Rusty pilot course coming up. That's going to be 2024. And then we have a few more on the list, but I don't want to talk about them just yet until we've done more progress. But at least these 4 courses, or 3 courses, are pretty deep into the process. It takes time, unfortunately. Well, I don't know, fortunately maybe, to build these courses correctly. And then next year, we're going to be doing a full re-recording of the private pilots. We got a ton of cool ideas, a ton of things that we've been working on in the back end as well for the private pilot course. It's time to redo the course completely. And so that's coming up in 2024 as well. So I'm super excited about this as well. So yeah, we've been busy on that side. And of course, we're still building drone courses as well. So our team has been extremely busy on all sides. All right, folks, I think we're going to end it. We have another course. I forgot. We have a helicopter course coming up for private pilots. That's coming up in early 2024 as well. We're pretty deep into that one as well. Should be recording within the next month or so. And we have some amazing animations coming for that, like never seen before type of animation for the helicopter course. So I'm excited about that as well. So big one. That's a big one. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to end it. Thanks for watching. We will see you again next month. That will be December. I don't know the date exactly, but the first Monday of December. We'll post it on our Facebook group and YouTube and everywhere. And make sure you join us again. And in the meantime, you have a great week. And we'll see you on Saturday for news updates. And that's it for now.